Hey there everybody at the FFBE Global Facebook group, and hello to everybody who sees this video on YouTube as well. Welcome to this week's episode of askanoldmog, where I try and take some questions from the Facebook group and answer them in a visual format. This week I do not have a question that came from the Facebook group. I've got a question that came up off the top of my head, and then somebody in Discord was asking about something and asked my opinion about it, and I said, hey, surprise, surprise, I'm actually doing a video about that tonight, so yeah, I guess I really do have to do it. It's a question that is, I think, controversial and very loaded, and is also going to be, my answers are all going to be very full of opinion, and that has to do with who is the best Meteor user. So let's take a look. So the question that I have for us is, of course, who is the best Meteor user? And I'm going to answer your question with a question, which is like my favorite annoying thing to do: the best at what? Okay, so where is this question coming from? Obviously, this week is exciting because we now have 3 different users of Meteor plus 2. We have Exdeath, we have Awakened Onion Knight, and we have Golbez. And they're all very powerful in their own ways. But my question then, like, the best at what, kind of comes from a couple different places. You know, are they the best at just strictly using Meteor? Are they the best at gearing? Are they the best at providing other utility for your party? And for that, we're going to need to dig a little bit into their kits. Now, I'm going to do something that I don't usually do, which is pop up a spreadsheet, and there's going to be a lot of numbers, but I want to talk about more than just numbers to try and answer this question, okay? So to get into that, I'm going to go ahead and get this question out of the way, and I am going to bring up the spreadsheet. So here it is. It's really boring, and I'm sorry, but here you go. So just looking at the 3 users, Exdeath, Awakened Onion Knight, and Golbez, we've got a couple things to consider. One, what are their raw stats, at level 120? What passives do they bring? And what killers do they have? So we're going to start with Golbez, who's right next to my head. His raw stats for MP and magic, I'm going to get this out of the way for just a second to show you. I've got them all geared, completely, nothing equipped. Hold on. Nothing equipped. All 3 of them. There you go. Nothing equipped, no espers, and just their raw stats. So looking at Golbez, he's got go ahead and bring the chart back up. Golbez has 2,488 MP and 2,971 magic. Now, what's neat about Golbez is that he has 290% MP out of 400, so only missing a deficit of 110% for MP, and his magic is only missing a deficit of 60%. So he's doing pretty good on his magic and MP percentages. Where he really lacks is his true double hand magic. So he's kind of the hardest one to gear for true double hand, but it's not terribly difficult if you have some good gear on hand. He also comes with some nice killers, with human, fairy, plant, and reaper at 150 or better, 200% for human. So against those enemies, he's very easy to gear. You also don't have to load him up with lots and lots of MP and magic materia, so you've got a lot of room for extra killers if you need to gear him for other things. All right, let's take a look at Onion Knight next. His raw stats are the lowest, with 1,004 MP and 1,884 magic. He's only got 60% passives, which is a huge part of the problem. So he's missing a deficit of 340% to both his MP and magic stat. But he's got a really decent true double hand magic at 300% built into his kit, only missing 100%. He's got Reaper Killer, Dragon Killer, Demon Killer, and Beast Killer. So potentially easy to gear for some of those at 150% for both physical and magical. Kind of neat. But definitely has the worst stats and the worst passives. So kind of the hardest one to gear is Awakened Onion Knight. Now, Exdeath is the newest one of the batch, so you should maybe assume that he's going to be the best. That's going to depend on a bunch of different factors. We're going to talk about each one. His MP is kind of middle of the road, so a 1403 with 120% passive, and magic 5,092 with a 110% passive. So he's got a little little stuff that you need to gear for, but it's not too bad when you look at it all together. It's pretty easy to slap those things on there, but he does definitely want to focus on his own killers, because you are going to need some materials to boost up his MP passives. So he's got 200% beast, avian, aquatic, and human killer for physical, which is the one Meteor uses, but he's also got some really nice killers for magical. So like beast, avian, and human are all at 300%, so he's already capped out there. And then aquatic, insect, and plant, he's got a little bit as well. Now that's just looking at stats. So just kind of looking at stats, I kind of rank them in the order of, like, you know, Golbez for ease of gearing, Exdeath for just having high stats, and Awakened Onion Knight for some killers, I guess. He's also, but that's just looking at stats, right? So there's more to this equation than stats. Awakened Onion Knight does happen to have, you know, pretty good true double hand magic, not as good as Exdeath. Exdeath needs nothing for true double hand. He's awesome. But they have other things going for them too. So again, we're going to start talking about Golbez. Golbez comes with a 160% Dark Imperil, as well as an 88 defense and Spirit Break. Depending on how you gear him, you could give him his Curse Armor or his Blessing Armor, and get one of those two. He also potentially has, he also has, built into his kit, also has an Esper Fill ability. He's got a modifier boost from Meteor. He's got preemptive full break and imperils. He's got an AoE Reaper Killer buff, depending on how you gear him. He's got the Breaker tag, which means he can wear like Dark Breaker, Light Breaker, Earth Breaker, things like that, giving him really nice utility if you need it. So that's kind of like Golbez's thing. Now he's also, like I said, gears pretty easy for a lot of different killers and has room for Magic Boost Plus. So he's got some nice assets, but he's also got a liability. He has a move called Barrier Shift, that when he takes damage or misses an attack misses him, he can counter sometimes, and if you counter, it cancels your store mechanic. So if you're using Magic Boost Plus every turn and you got him fully geared up and powered up, and then somebody hits him with an attack or he misses an attack and he counters, there goes all your store, there goes all your damage. You know, it's just gone. So it is a liability for Golbez, something you got to keep an eye on. Let's talk about Onion Knight. Onion Knight boasts some really neat utility for your party. In addition to having 4 different +3 Ga spells, so like Fire Ga, Blizzaga, Thundaga, things like that, he's got those chaining spells. He's also got a 135 Earth and Wind Imperil and a 130 Fire and Water Imperil, so pretty decent for an NVA. He's got Protectga and Shellga 2. He's got Re-Raise, Full Life, Curaga, Asunaga, Stona to get rid of stone. It's kind of neat. And his Limit Burst does some really cool things too. It will remove a bunch of bad stuff from your team. It also removes some good stuff. It can remove like Reflect stacks, so you gotta be real careful with that. But it removes a bunch of bad stuff from your team, and it boosts the modifiers for really common chaining spells, things like Blizzaga, Thundaga, Firaga, all the things that like Vivi wants to chain with. He boosts the modifier of that. He's also a roll shift unit, so you can gear him in 2 different forms for utility, and then just shift up to Meteor when you're ready, which is really cool. Also has the healer tag, so he can wear Ilmatal's he can wear any items that require the healer tag, things like Ilmatal's and what's the other one that I'm thinking of? Came out with Van Harma. It's got the clothes that gives people killer abilities that requires the healer tag. So it's kind of neat that he can wear both those and like give people killers, you know, on his off turns when he's not storing up magic or things like that. So he's got some neat utility for the party, but still I think kind of middle of the road unless you really need someone to cast those like white magic spells and like chain with and stuff. And if you're doing the chaining that you get the modifier boost from, that's pretty neat too. But in general, whatever. Exdeath has some neat utility as well. He has innate built-in resistance to all elements at 30% or better. He's got a 135 Earth Imperil from his Quake spell. He's got a 25% Sword Imperil on his SLB. He's got an 80% Spirit Break ability. Also has 130 Wind and Dark Imperil. He's got 3 different +3 Ga spells. And he's only got the Mage tag, so he can't wear any special stuff unless it's specifically for mages. but you know, there are some things that he could benefit from. But there you go. So just looking at those three, you know, there's a lot of things to consider, like which one becomes the best one. But obviously we do care a little bit about numbers too. And so I'm going to get this, this spreadsheet out of the way for just a second. And I want to show you some numbers with gear turned on. So I went ahead and took all three of these units. Okay. And they're all unequipped right here. So you can see, you know, they got their, just kind of got some stats, whatever. And I went ahead and I put this gear on all three of them. So this gear is not in any way the best possible build that you could put on them. But you know, it gives them a little bit of everything they need. So it gives them HP, MP, magic. It lets Onion Knight wear swords. And then we've got a sword, which is the best magic weapon in the game, as well as some really nice, you know, bonus stat gear that you get from Clash of Wills and stuff like that. This is by no means best in slot for each and every one of them, but I wanted to put this gear on all three of them and just show you what it looks like from their stats and passives, how they land with these setups. Okay, so they're all wearing the same gear in the numbers that I'm about to show you. Okay, here's the spreadsheet again, and I'm going to scroll down to where it says capped stats. So right here where it says capped stats, with that gear turned on, with that gear put on, Exdeath ended up with 6,265 MP and 11,075 magic. Now that's, with that gear setup, he's got both 400% MP and magic, and he's got 400% true double hand magic. So he's got all of his stats capped. But, all right, did you notice? I'm gonna put it back up here. There is no room for killers here. So Exdeath is not getting any bonus killers. And in fact, none of them are getting any bonus killers with this particular build. So he's relying fully on the killers that are baked into his kit. Okay, so, and no magic boost plus. So that's the key for all three of these. But there's his stats. Now, Onion Knight ends up being the worst, you know, in terms of raw stats with that build. That is not the best build for Onion Knight. With that build though, he ends up with 5,651 MP and 7,680 magic. He's missing 50% MP, and he's got 400% true double hand magic. So potentially, you know, it's not terrible, but it's definitely like the low end of the three of them. Golbez is ends up kind of middle of the road in terms of his stats. You know, he's also got 6,265 magic and 400%. But he's got 8,180 magic at 400%. And he's missing in that build, you know, 100% true double hand magic. That one of the things we said was a liability of his. So he's missing that. You can easily fix that by just putting on one of his TMR or STMR. And then that problem is gone. And with him in anyway, you're probably gonna be wearing his TMR or STMR. And honestly, with Onion Knight, you know, you want to wear his TMR or STMR so that he can get the stat passives and things like that, the bonuses that he gets for it. Exdeath is probably the least reliant on his TMR or STMR. All it really gives him is triple cast, and it's not that important because all he's doing is casting Meteor. So there you have it. You know, their stats definitely, you know, there's definitely a lot of variability in their stats, but I feel like it's really kind of tied between, in terms of raw damage with the same build, Exdeath and Golbez, you know, just comes down to their magic stat, and Exdeath definitely takes the cake, but might be lacking in some utility depending on what you're using him for. So then the answer becomes, you know, it depends on what you are fighting, what gear you have available, what else your party needs during the fight. If you are doing, you know, a magic damage fight and you want to bring a chainer that's going to be chaining spells and stuff like that, and you want to bring like a VV Steiner Awakened Onion Knight combo, Awakened Onion Knight you can gear him up right. He can cap a chain that VV sets off of Steiner, and you can do that really nicely with Meteor very, very easily. And that might be pretty good. That might not be pretty good depending on what you're doing. You know, if you're doing a fight where you need to use Espers a couple of times during the fight, having Golbez on the team might be useful to fill the Esper gauge for you. If you're just focusing on doing damage and you want to do earth damage as opposed to dark damage, then having Exdeath on the fight might be the best one. Or if you're fighting, you know, plants or insects or aquatic enemies, then Exdeath is the best one on the fight versus, you know, Golbez, who's better for the other killers that he has. And so it really just depends. I think though, based on their stat spread and their passives, that Golbez is the most flexible of the three of them, and he's the easiest to build on a budget and still being really powerful with a lot of room for killers. I think that, you know, assuming you have everything at your disposal, that I think that all three of them have a lot of potential, and it's good to have all three ready to go. If you have everything available at your disposal, you know, I think that Exdeath probably comes out on top just because of the raw stats, but it's really hard to argue with Golbez's flexibility if you're just focusing on doing, you know, meteor damage. That said, in my Dark Visions clear for last month, Awakened Onion Knight ended up doing the most damage between him and Golbez by a long shot because of the gearing and stuff like that. And I was doing the double meteor strat, and yeah, Awakened Onion Knight took the cake for me. So yeah, it's an annoying answer when I do this. You know, I like to do this thing where I'm like, it depends, but it totally depends. It depends so much on what gear you have. It depends so much on what you're fighting, what you're dealing with, what else you have in your party, what else your party needs. And so asking who's the best is kind of an unfair question. Sorry, it is the way it is. But maybe you've got a different opinion. Maybe I'm missing something, or maybe you just, you know, think differently. Maybe your gear combination is different. Maybe you've got a better build. I'm certain you do. I definitely did not do best in slot builds for all three of them. I was just showing the same gear on all three. I'm open to your feedback. I'm open to discussion. You know, let's talk about it. How is your mileage going differently than mine? Are you having different or better results doing things like that? Are you considering all the factors? Did you learn something new about what each one of these units can do today that maybe changes your opinion a little bit? In the end, does it really matter that much? I think it does, depending on what you're fighting. You know, being able to bring a 160 Dark Imperil is pretty sweet if you've got an enemy that's already naturally weak to Dark. So, you know, in that instance, Golbez is pretty great. Or if you're doing an all-Earth team and you want to bring, like, you know, the 100% Earth amp from Sylvie, and the big Earth Imperil field from Tsukiko, and you know, the what am I thinking? The big break from Tulian, and then, you know, bring Golbez on, or Exdeath on top of it. You might be doing pretty nice damage there. Added bonus, bring Ferris now with her Earth Amp field, and now we've got double fields and big breaks and a big Imperil, or a big Amplify from Sylvie, and we're doing some serious Earth damage. So I don't know. Your mileage may vary. I'm open to feedback about it. You know, let me know in the comments. But if you've got a question for next week, let me know, and we'll dig into that too, and hopefully have some fun with it. And yeah, we'll see what comes out. In the meantime, be good to each other, take care, and we'll see you in next week's video.